Thank you, Travis. Thank you, everyone. Welcome to our October meeting. I'd like to welcome you all here to our October meeting of Council. I'd personally like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we are meeting and pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and many elders that may be joining with us today. Thank you very much. So, do we have any apologies for tonight's meeting?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, we do. Councillor Stewart is an apology this evening, and noting that Councillor Fire is streaming in on Zoom this evening.
Thank you for bringing that to my attention. I thought we need to go through the usual off-screen welcome, so to speak. Given that we are having a hybrid meeting tonight where we have a councillor in attendance via Zoom technology, just to make sure that we all understand each other. So I would firstly ask if Councillor Pollard, can you hear and see us, Councillor Pollard?
Yes, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I can see and hear everyone.
Thank you very much. And we can certainly see and hear you up there on the big screen tonight. Just from housekeeping point of view, please wave furiously if you want to, move or second a motion so we can see you up there. I don't have to forget you. And the other thing is, if we do lose connectivity, we'll pause the meeting to re-establish connectivity during the meeting so that we will continue on and we'll allow ourselves up to 30 minutes to achieve that in the end. So thank you for just those little housekeeping rules for tonight. Moving along there, so confirmation of minutes of the previous meeting. Councillors, we have a recommendation that we adopt the minutes of the council meeting held on Wednesday, the 14th of September, 2022. Do I have someone to move that we adopt those minutes, please, councillors?
Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Getley to move that. Do I have a seconder, please?
Yeah, I'll do that.
Councillor Milne, do I have any opposition to that? That's carried. Thank you, councillors. Point 4, request for leave of absence. Do we have any requests for leave of absence?
Thank you, Mayor. There are no requests for leave of absence at this stage.
Thank you very much, Rachel. Point 5, declaration of pecuniary and conflicts of interest. In accordance with section 132 of the Local Government Act 2020, councillors who have a conflict of interest in respect of the matter being considered this meeting must A, disclose the conflict of interest in the manner required by Council's Governance Rules 2020 and exclude themselves from the decision-making process in relation to that matter, including any discussion or vote on a matter at any council meeting or delegated committee and any action in relation to that matter. Disclosure must occur immediately before the matter is considered or discussed. Councillors, at this stage, do we have any conflicts of interest to be declared?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, councillors. That's duly noted. Point 6, questions from the public. I believe, Mr. CEO, we do have questions from the public.
We do, Mayor. We have some questions that we've received from Elder Uncle Gary Murray on behalf of the First Nations peoples, traditional owners of Dirrell or Lake Tyrrell. And there's quite a bit of it, Mayor, so bear with me while I read through. On 14 March 2019, Elder Uncle Gary Murray had lengthy discussions with then Mayor of the Buloke Shire Council, Councillor Carolyn Stewart, in regard to the multifunctional cultural ecotourism and environmental planetarium resort concept, showcasing Barung people's history, galaxy, creation stories, language, landscape and waterscape to cultivate and nurture. And he, as representative of the First Nations people and traditional owners, emailed to the Mayor, Councillor Stewart, a brief of documentation supporting this concept. This concept already has the support of the Wamba Wamba, Wadi Wadi, Tati Tati, Lachi Lachi, Wachabalek, Chapagalik, Jadawada, and the Jadwa First Nations. This concept has already been discussed with the Miss Karen Millwood, the co-chair of the Victorian Aboriginal Economic Development Board, and she is supportive of the proposal. Funding for the business case and feasibility study include a master architectural plan, would be available from First Nations State Relations Department and Aboriginal Community Infrastructure Funds of up to $50,000. Specialist architects have already been briefed on the concept. Basis of our queries. Query 1. Instead of the Buloke Shire sponsoring and supporting the World Heritage Values of Dirrell, why has the Shire proceeded instead to grant a planning permit on 22 June 2017 for the Murray Allen development for cabins, camping ground, caravan park and helipad on the very environmentally sensitive shores of Dirrell? We, First Nations people, traditional owners of Dirrell, are of strong belief that this planning permit was granted by the Buloke Shire in breach of the Victorian and Commonwealth legislation, Aboriginal Heritage Act 2006 Victoria, and the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Heritage Protection Act 1984 Commonwealth, and regulations thereunder for the protection of First Nations tangible and intangible heritage. In addition, we are of the strongest view that this permit was granted in breach of the Victorian Charter of Human Rights, the Charter of Human Rights and Responsibilities Act 2006 Victoria. The Murray Allen development already commenced in breach of the legislation and registrations in destructive of and highly detrimental to significant Aboriginal cultural heritage at Dirrell, being on the very shores of the lake and in the highly fragile dunes areas protected under this important legislation. And their questions 2 and 3 are, why then is Buloke Shire Council supporting to provide unanimous support for the reinstatement of the Mallee Rally, which has been shown to be highly destructive of Aboriginal cultural heritage? See the Vincent Clark Conservation Management Report and its recommendations produced at the direction of Buloke Shire Council, January 2022. And the report's own recommendation that the Mallee Rally should never again be reinstated at Dirrell, and to maintain the Murray Allen development planning permit was and is a legally valid permit, when in fact we believe that the granting of that permit was in total breach of all governing legislation, state and Commonwealth. I note that it is now 3.5 years since Uncle Gary spoke to the Mayor and sent her the documentation referred to above. Elder Uncle Gary has had no further response from the Buloke Shire since that time. Hence, Uncle Gary, on behalf of First Nations people, traditional owners of Dirrell, asked these questions so as to provide proper and up-to-date answers to First Nation brothers and sisters who are keenly aware of and highly concerned about Dirrell. Also, we believe that we are obliged to contact the various government departments in relation to these concerns. Thank you, Nan.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. That's a fairly comprehensive document tonight. Sadly, it lacks in questions, but in determining to answer what has been purported to be questions, I offer the following. The questions tonight relating to the Murray Allen development were asked by Mr. Gary Murray at Council's 14th September meeting in the same form. Council issued a planning permit in June 2017 for the use and development for a camping and caravan park, helipad signage and associated works on Mr. Allen's property. This permit was issued under delegation by Council's planning officer in accordance with the Planning and Environment Act 1987. Council, as the responsible authority, is required under the Act to assess all planning applications lawfully submitted to us. The permit is legally binding due to it having been executed in compliance with the law. There were no objections to the permit application by any agency or individual, and there has been no appeal made to the planning decision since it was issued in June 2017. Question 2, unanimous support for the Mallee Rally. The carried notice of motion at the council meeting on 8 June 22 in relation to a letter of support for the Sea Lake Off-Road Clubbing also noted that the importance of conserving and protecting the heritage of this area is truly respected, noting the cultural management plan prepared for Lake Tourism. The Sea Lake Off-Road Club have engaged the services of a cultural heritage advisor who has inspected the proposed route, and I might add here, it is not the route around Lake Tourism, so it's a different route. and is in the process of preparing a report. It is not unreasonable action of council to support a volunteer committee working towards a community outcome, provided that cultural heritage is respected and protected. In terms of question 3, I just refer to the first response in regard to the Murray Island permit. Those comments you'll see. Thank you, and I thank Uncle Gary Murray for the questions. No doubt next month we'll get a different raft of questions. Procedural matters. We'll move to 7.1, report of councillor assemblies. Report of council assemblies. Councillors, we have a recommendation that the council note the report of the council assembly meetings held 7 and 21 of September 2022. Councillors, do I have someone to note those and move those and make those reports, please?
Happy to do that, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Mill, thank you. And Councillor Simpson, the second. Everyone comfortable with that? Thank you, councillors. 7.2, correspondence initiated by council. We have a recommendation, council, that we to note the record of correspondence initiated by council and the responses received. I think in regard to that, is there any updates?
There's not, Mayor, other than to highlight that the letter to Life Saving Victoria and Royal Life Saving Australia have both gone since preparation of this report.
Thank you very much, councillors. Do we have someone to move? We note those, please. Councillor Getley, someone second. Councillor Simpson, any count? You didn't wave enough. Thanks, Councillor Pollard. I don't forget you up there. Any opposition, councillors? Thank you very much. That's council. 7.3, letters of congratulation and recognition of achievement. Councillors, nothing has been to hand at this stage, but normally sometimes there's been someone that's done something that needs recognition. Councillor Mills.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you, I'd wonder whether it'd be a fitting time to maybe recognise the contribution that Louise Daly has made to our area, given that at the next election she won't be our sitting member if she's returned, and maybe just thank her for all the work that she's done for those who she represented within the Shire of Buloke.
Well, I suppose that would be, I suppose, the same with the Ellie Cover, because
Ellie's still in this ward.
She's still in this, another ward has kind of taken over what part of Ripon that we had there.
Yeah, okay. Well, no, I know the difference. Yeah.
That's open for interpretation by everybody, of course. That's only my thoughts.
Yes, sir. But I suppose there's a different thing when she's now vacating.
Sure.
Legal boundaries
Yeah,
have meant that she can no longer represent us.
Yeah,
Okay, take that as a motion there, just needs a second.
do I have a second? Councillor Getley, any opposition? So thanks for the point of clarification. Any others?
Thank you. No, that's all I have at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll remove a second.
Thank you.
Thank you. 7.4, the building permits monthly update. Any questions of this council before we?
Demolition.
They, worthy of demolition?
I know one is.
I know one is.
No, no, too.
Well, we've only got 3 and we've got 4 I knows.
Yeah, council, we do have a recommendation. The council note the information contained in the report on building permits approved by staff from 1 September 22 to 30 September 22. Do I have someone to move that recommendation?
He's got his hand up. Hand up in the corner.
Councillor Pollard moved that. Do I have a second, please, councillor? Councillor Mill. Any opposition? No, that's carried. Thank you, councillor. 7.5, planning application received the monthly update. Any questions, councillors, at this stage, or any points? It's a fairly hefty list.
Very busy time in the planning office, man.
The number one that comes up is our friends at Corrack Road at Donald. We're still waiting.
No change.
No
After that,
change.
obviously, I've spoken to the relevant manager again this week about that, but we're certainly attempting to get a response from the applicant on that, but it hasn't been forthcoming.
Okay, yep. Any other queries, councillors? But I mean, it's good to see. It's good to see the number of planning permits being, well, applied for and issued. I think the planning people are very happy with their jobs. We have a recommendation that council note the information contained in the report on planning applications under consideration by the staff and the status of each of these applications. Do I have a mover, please? Councillor Ketley, do I have a seconder? Councillor Pollard, thank you. Any opposition? Duly carried and noted. Thank you, councillors. 7.6, status of action of past council meeting resolutions. We have a recommendation of any queries, I suppose, or any observations at this stage or points of clarification to staff.
All looks okay to me, Mr. Mayor.
And Mayor, if I may, there has been a number of updates again since the preparation of the report that will be reflected in the minutes.
In the minutes, yeah, okay. So we do have a recommendation. We know the status of action report for council resolutions documented as attached. So do I have a mover, please, councillors? Councillor Milne, thank you. Yep. Councillor Pollard, any opposition? Carried. Thank you, councillors. General business policy reports. 8.1.11 guarantee policy. Now,
It looks like me, Mayor, tonight.
I mean, you can't get it past.
No, I can't.
No. No,
Yes,
you have to take responsibility.
and then I will. So, Mayor, this report has been brought to council to consider an adjustment to the loan guarantee policy, and the key change is, of course, increasing the limit of our loan guarantee from $300,000 to $500,000. Mayor, there's a recommendation for councillors for their consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Seeger. Councillors, any questions? Observation, perhaps? Councillor Milne?
I will, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just to state that this is probably a fairly important policy change, one that will allow us to help community, but into the same, in the same breath, it is also something that we have to be very comfortable with in doing, in that being guarantor for loans can be fraught with danger in some cases, but fortunately we've had good success so far with loans that we've guaranteed. So I can see no reason for any change in that. So I'm happy to endorse the idea that we increase that to 500,000, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Milne, any other comments, councillors? No. Thank you. Well, we do have a recommendation that the council adopts the revised loan guarantee policy for a period of 4 years. I take it, Councillor Milne, you're happy to move that?
I am happy to move that,
Do I
Mr.
have a
Mayor.
seconder, please? Councillor Getley? Any opposition? That's carried. Thank you, councillors. 8.1.2 procurement policy. You again?
Yes, me again, Mayor. Thank you. Yes, so officers have undertaken a review, as we are required to do on an annual basis, of our procurement policy. And the key change amongst it is to update the threshold values as being exclusive of GST. And the policy is in compliance with sections 108 and 109 of the Act. And policy has also been to the Audit and Risk Committee for their review on the 20th of September. Mayor, there's a recommendation for councillors for your consideration.
I suppose before we jump in there, probably again, previous ones, which is the document also went through audit risk as well.
It did.
So, yes, which is critical, I think, in terms of our comfort zone. So, councillors, any questions on this one?
Just a comment, Mr. Mayor,
Yep.
just it's very basic, brings it in line with standard accounting practices, and I see no reason why we should not adopt this.
Thank you. So we have a recommendation that council adopts the revised procurement policy for a period of 4 years. Do I have a mover, please, councillors?
Yes.
Councillor Getley to move and seconder. Councillor Simpson.
Always got his hand up. That little
Oh,
yellow
I missed him.
corner.
Oh, Oh, hang on. You like using your technology, councillor Pollard. I can't see.
Yes, I figured out how to use technology because my internet connection's that slow you can't see me waving.
Where's his little hand?
It's normally up in the top left-hand corner.
Okay, I'll keep an eye. Ah, there it is. Yeah, you got it. Right. You learn something every day, don't you? So we were going to adopt the revised procurement policy.
Move in a second.
Move in a second. That's Councillor Getley to move it, and Councillor Simpson the second. Thank you. When there's no opposition, that'll be carried. Thank you, councillors. Righto. 8.2.1 management reports. Tourism Business Innovation Grants Round 2. Mr. Travis.
No, that will be me again, Mayor. I'm happy to present that.
Okay.
I'm pleased to present this report as round 2 of Council's Tourism Business Innovation Grants. And a process was undertaken whereby we advertised the opportunity for locals to apply for the funding round. We had a number of applications, and an independent panel was formed to assess those applications, and the panel is recommending that council awards $15,000 to the Blue Duck Distillery in Donald and retains the remaining $15,000 in the pool to run a third round early in 2023. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions, councillors?
No, only a comment, I suppose, to say that once again there was a reasonable amount of interest in this, and that it is provoking people to think about opportunities.
Thank you. So, councillors, we have a recommendation that council awards $15,000 to the Blue Duck Distillery in Donald and 2 retains the remaining $15,000 in the fund to run a third round in 2023. Do I have a mover and a seconder?
Happy to move that, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillman. And a seconder, Councillor Pollard. Thank you. Got that one. And any opposition, councillors? Thank you very much. Just an observation now that I did happen to run into a certain said gentleman who was doing this particular project, and you might say that he does have his ducks all lined up today, and it just leads to so many puns. One happy duck, etc., etc., etc. And his ducks are swimming beautifully today.
We've certainly got ducks in water.
Oh, you see, I mean, it's beautiful. I mean, the editor of the Buloke Times couldn't be happier that, you know, we're finally recognising Donald again with ducks. But anyway.
A late question, Mr. Mayor, I suppose, is do we intend to have some sort of report on how we might then distribute the balance of $15,000?
Yes. Yeah, short answer is through your areas. Yes, we will come back to council because the remaining $15,000, we'll not just run another round where we have some other opportunities to discuss those ones.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, councillors. 8.2.2 Advocacy Strategy 2022-23.
That is the Director of Community Development there.
Over to you.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you, councillors, we're pleased to bring you tonight the Advocacy Strategy 2022-23. The strategy outlines the key advocacy projects councillors currently committed to focusing on and seeking partnerships to implement, which of course follow the same themes identified by the Buloke residents in the development of the Buloke 2030 community vision. Previous iterations of the strategy have been incredibly successful. The recent commitment to large-scale ambient build for Sea Lake is a prime example of that. Councillors, tonight we bring you the Advocacy Strategy 2022-23.
Thank you, Mr. Fitzgibbon. Councillors, any questions or comments? Getley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A comment, having read the policy that's presented, I think it gives our residents and community a very good insight into what we propose to do. It's set out clearly. It's not full of mumbo jumbo, Mr. Fitzgibbon, which I thank you for. And the community can look at that and say, well, the council has listened to what they've said and are moving forward to advocate in that regard. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Getley. Any other observations or comments, councillors?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to reiterate what Councillor Getley has said, it's when you look at the list of things that in the key initiatives, there's some things that are new But there's also a number of things there that we've been pushing for a number of years with hope that we might be able to get them finished, and one being the Murray Basin Rail project, you know, something that's been going on for a long time. And of course, if we don't keep pushing for these things, we'll never have an opportunity to see them come to fruition, I guess. So a great list of things and a great initiative.
Any other? Councillor Pollard?
Yep, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to include a couple of other projects and expand on a couple of them in there, please.
Certainly.
In our built and natural environment, we're looking at the relocation of the truck route in Witcherproof. We possibly should be doing the same for Charlton, to switch the Sonana Road to the back Sonana Road. As the trucks are getting longer and taking up more room terminating in the middle of town, it'll probably be safer to remove them out to the outskirts of Charlton. And in the writing of the aerodrome upgrades, just put it in there to allow the fixed wing ambulance service to use our airports, because we're really struggling at the minute to get the fixed wing to land in any of our airstrips, and it's annoying Dillio out of me.
Yep.
Yeah. We've had instances of that. Yeah. Yep. Good
In
point.
our community wellbeing section, the Charlton Driver Education Centre, I don't believe that we need to do any more planning. They've got all the designs done. They just need funds to build. And it might pay just to double check with them just to be 100% sure. Because they gave us plans 12 months or more ago at council.
Yep.
And that's about all I've got at the minute now, Mr. Mayor. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Pollard. Yeah, Mr.
The Council Centre just wanted to get some clarification on that particular matter, Mayor.
Do we have a clarification on what they've submitted to council in relation to the driver education centre?
So there's, through the Mayor, there's been no submission to council. This is sort of a standalone project. We're simply providing advocacy role to anybody and everybody that we get the opportunity to speak to about that project.
No, that's it. I mean, I suppose to put it in context, it'd be very much like the advocacy role that council undertook with the upgrades to the Rex Theatre. You know, over the journey, like, you know, yeah, Councillor Simpson.
I would also like to acknowledge in that we have worked really hard in our housing investment, and we have worked with planning for changes to our rural living and housing upgrade, availability of land, and also the amount of work we've done in getting the land available for sale in Sea Lake hopefully this year.
Yes. Yep. Some new information with those items.
Councillor Pollard, are you happy to move the motion with those amendments you've put in?
I'm happy to move that motion. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Pollard. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Gifford, thank you. Any opposition?
No opposition.
Thank you. That's carried. And thanks for the discussion, councillors. I mean, it's a document we will be, I think, handing out on a frequent basis in the next, I think it's 47 days, isn't it? Thereabouts. And anyway, it's good to have that in hand. 8.2.3, instrument of delegation of the Chief Executive Officer.
Mayor, that's the Director of Infrastructure. Present that report.
Thank you.
AKA the former Director of Corporate Services.
That's right.
Yeah, okay.
No problem.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you, we're bringing the instrument of the delegation to the Chief Executive Officer as part of a regular review. We undertake all delegations issued from councillors to staff and also from CEO to staff internally. Best practice is that we will do this on an annual basis. This one is also very relevant insofar as the council has resolved at tonight's meeting to adopt a revised procurement policy, and the S5 specifically references the CEO's financial delegation, which is also linked back to that policy.
Thank you. To you, councillors. Any questions or observations? Straightforward. I do.
All my questions are answered in briefing, so I'm happy.
Okay. That's very good. So, yes, the wheels of the bus would fall off if every delegation had to come back to council, which could be a tortuous problem. Councillors, we do have a recommendation that council resolve that one. Be delegated to the person holding the position or acting in or performing the duties of Chief Executive Officer, the powers, duties and functions set out in the attached instrument of delegation to the Chief Executive Officer, subject to the conditions and limitations specified in that instrument. 2, the instrument comes into force immediately upon this resolution being made and is to be signed by the Council Chief Executive Officer and the Mayor. 3, on the coming into force of the instrument, all previous delegations to the Chief Executive Officer are revoked. And 4, the duties and functions set out in the instrument must be performed and the powers set out in the instruments must be executed in accordance with any guidelines and policies of council that it may from time to time adopt. Councillors, do I have someone to move that particular recommendation? Councillor Pollard to move it. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Simpson, thank you. Any opposition?
No opposition.
That's carried. Thank you, councillors. I ordered this week. The chair just goes here.
But they certainly ask some questions when they
I
need
know.
to.
8.3, financial reports. Good way to come into financial reports. 8.3.1, financial and performance statements. This is like for you.
This is me again, Mayor. Yes, and thank you. A very important report before councillors tonight, and that is the presentation of our financial and performance statements. And I'd certainly like to, Mayor, if I may acknowledge the Finance Manager, Aileen Douglas, and the work that her and her team have done on preparing these statements. And also, as we just mentioned, acknowledge the Audit and Risk Committee, as well as our external auditors in the preparation of these reports for council consideration. The recommendation is provided.
Thank you very much, Mr. CEO. Any questions, councillors?
No question, Mr. Mayor, just a comment, and I'd just like to endorse Mr. O'Toole's comment. Aileen presented to us at the last briefing. She was very clear and concise and was able to explain in terms us lay people could follow the financial report. So I'd like to also pass on the good work there. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other observations, comments, councillors?
I would make a comment here through the Mayor that I attend most Audit and Risk Committee meetings, and find their scrutiny of our financial statements very comforting.
Thank you, Councillor Simpson. So, councillors, we have a recommendation that Council 1 approves in principle the financial statements and the performance statement for the 2021-22 financial year. 2, authorises the Mayor, Councillor Warren, to approve last-minute changes on an immaterial nature on the advice of Council's external auditor. And 3, authorises the Mayor, Councillor Warren, the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Getley, to sign the final form financial statements and performance statement on behalf of and with full authority of the Council. Do I have someone to move that recommendation, please, councillors? Councillor Simpson to move that. Do I have a second, please? Councillor Getley the second. Any opposition? No. That's carried. Thank you very much, councillors. 8.4, organisational reports, we have here. 8.5, reports from councillors. I'll throw to the big screen so that we, can get it straight away. So, Councillor Pollard, you want to lead off?
I've got nothing to actually report, Mr. Mayor, but we've been doing a lot of preparation around Charlton for the inevitable meeting that may happen this weekend.
Yep. Thank you. Councillor Milne.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Has been a little bit light on with things that I've had to attend, but certainly one of the more important ones has been the Buloke biomanagement planning workshops that we've had, and we're up to the situation where now we've had feedback on the draft, has closed for that. So looking forward to getting back into that management of fire preparedness within the Shire. Again, it's been some time since we've had a meeting of an official meeting, so good to be getting back into that area. We've had a Buloke Tourism Board meeting, and look, that's about all I can report on at the moment. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Getley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I attended the Sea Lake AGM up there in Sea Lake a couple of weeks back. New executive at the top, Jenny Newell is the new president, and Julie Pringle is the new vice president. They've got a list of things that they're trying to achieve this year. We thank Alex Newell for his service over the year. He has moved away and unfortunately couldn't continue. Noel last night, good meeting. Buloke a bit of flack about the condition of the town. Wayne has received a letter from town today, and Mrs. Hugh has shown me the photos of some of the work that's been done today, so that will in some way please them. Obviously the weather was against us. Wimmera Southern Valley Tourism Group attended that meeting, and the pleasing thing for that with Buloke Shire that there is money from Regional Road Victoria for the Barung Highway in the Buloke Shire, Donald Store Road in the Buloke Shire, and the Donald Minion Road in the Buloke Shire. So there will be funding through regional roads. So that was probably a pretty good announcement that we're going to see something happen there. Attended the Donald Show luncheon in the company of Bronwyn on Saturday. Quite a nice little event there, and had a Zoom hook up with the Mallee Catchment Authority regarding the Weir Pool and what might happen with the Tyrrell Creek in this wet event, and how that's all going to play out. So there was a good meetings all around on those this month. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Simpson, anything to?
So I would say that I've attended various meetings, but the two that I found quite interesting was the Monday night SES flood management meeting that we had, followed the following week by the fire management meeting.
I do say Australia is the drought and flooding runs. And we're on all those lots.
But what I will also say is that I've been on the show judges circuit, and I have travelled on some appalling roads.
Put a words especially, not necessarily local.
Not necessarily Bulokes, no, definitely not Bulokes.
And Mayor, just on the subject of the SS, if I may, just confirming that there will be a town meeting to discuss all matters flooding in Charlton on Friday evening.
Yeah, yet to be confirmed that is notion.
Yeah.
6 p.m. Friday.
16th Friday for all, and that's to be run by the SS. Yeah.
Thanks, Councillor. Look, just probably a couple of comments out of my report. I suppose the last week and a half I've been inundated, to use the term, with requests from radio people and TV people, etc., just in regards to our weather situation. I just say to the councillors, we'll all get these requests. All we ask is that you flip them through to Travis or myself or whatever. We don't have a problem about you responding as long as we know, and we'll work you through that. Because I mean, radio people, TV people will not differentiate. They've got someone from council, and I mean, look, it's part and parcel of our job. That's our role in I suppose, the emergency management area. We're seen as the mouthpiece, so that's always good to know that you have that support when that happens. The other thing which I do like to do on a regular basis, and not as much as I like to, I always do my volunteer stint at the Sea Lake Visitor Information Centre, which I reckon is great to get to the coalface and find out what visitors are after and what they're doing. And it's amazing the number of visitors that are moving through the Shire at the moment. It was a full day. Literally, they didn't stop. And I'm very good at giving gelatos out and selling bottles of wine, amongst other things that you tend to do there, which is local product and so forth. But there certainly is a lot of visitors, and the centre is really filling that void that we knew it would, and it's great because all the information's there, people are appreciative, and the raft of people. I've had one couple that came in, they drove from Sydney to Sea Lake, to Lake Tyrrell, to capture the images, and they were driving back to Sydney because they obviously have seen it on Sino Weibo, which is the equivalent of Facebook in China. So it's really there. The other thing, in Councillor Simpson, the show season's in full swing, and it's good to see our shows back. I too attended the Donald Show, and apart from the fact that sadly the horse events were cancelled due to the weather, I can report that the cookery section was well supported by your local mayor, and he walked away with 3 first prizes and 2 second prizes. But I won't dwell on that. That's all right. Yeah, and the staff haven't died from the leftovers. So that's even better. So the rest of it I'll put through the staff. But look, it's pleasing to see the shows and the activities back. I know there's a lot like emerging, and it just shows our communities are coming back, and that's what we like to see, and that's always pleasing. But certainly there's a lot of interest in the Buloke Shire going forward, and hopefully that continues.
Mr Mayor,
Yes.
can I add one, please?
You can.
I don't want to be left out. I was also at the Donald Show. I said I was also at the Donald Show.
Yes.
And everybody else was.
Hang on, and so was Councillor Pollard. Because here, Councillor Pollard was up there with the ambulance service. So we were all at the show. We're a bit like, everyone's a winner. When we've seen the castle, haven't we? Everyone's a winner.
I was late after attending an event in Charlton in the morning. But was there for some significant announcements.
But I think that's where you see community at its best. It really is. And I mean, just to see the kids on the charge bar, and of course the dads chewing the fat of the bar.
And some granddads on the chart.
There we go. Councillor Simpson.
I know that we're at council and not at a show society meeting, but one thing I've noticed, and I've done quite a few shows, is a lot of them have a new committee. Post-COVID, they have a new committee, and I think that's a really healthy volunteering move forward in not just the Buloke community, but other communities as well.
And to add to that, if you've noticed that all these committees are generally made up of 99% of women. If you actually ran and it was commented on at the opening of the show at Donald, they had reps from various other shows which were all female-based committees, which is, it's an amazing.
Mr Mayor, it'd be interesting to maybe hear first-hand at a briefing or something, from a couple of the show societies, just to see what they come up against, how they operate, and whether there's an opportunity for us to help in any way, or whether they can, get some opportunity through us.
Yep.
So it'd be interesting, you know, in the lead up to the next show season, as to whether we could fit some of those societies in. There's probably only 2 in the Shire now that still operate, I guess. Yeah, Charlton and Dalton.
To follow that, yeah, we'll make an approach.
Birch's Flower Show.
Oh, yeah, Birchip, yeah, they have.
Is that a mini?
Yeah. Well, it's the replacement for the show.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Well, I think this is part of the council of the fourth system, that it's our opportunity to let everyone know, especially those that come online or in person, what goes on around the traps around the shop. Because I mean, generally speaking, it's fairly, what you say, straightforward, but good to know it's all there. Other business, councillors, no other business. So 9.1, notice of motions. I've received notice of motion. 9.2, questions from councillors. Councillors, any questions at this stage? Councillor Ellison? Councillor Hill, sorry.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. And a question that I have had written down to ask tonight, and Councillor Simpson touched on it before, is the where to and what has happened to our rural living campaign.
Yes.
If at some stage we can have an update on just where that might be sitting.
Yeah, this
This is a question on notice.
No, I can actually answer it. I'll have a question. Second time I have a question.
hang on, but I might be at odds here. Are we talking about the rural land
Rural,
use?
yeah, sorry, rural land use. Yeah,
Because
land use.
this is, I felt the same, the rural living.
Yeah, sorry.
Answer that question, not that question.
Sorry, wrong words.
No, that's fine.
Yeah, the rural land use. With the main interest in the rural living.
Yes.
Component of that.
Mayor, through you, I can provide a response and make inquiries early this week on that. So we have currently a consultant who's doing some work on that, preparing a report to come to a councillor briefing. That will be a December briefing, so most likely the first one to run a workshop with councillors. One of the things that we're considering is any other opportunities other than rezoning farming land. We might have to create some rural as well as an option. But there'll be a briefing in December for councillors.
Right, thank you.
The others?
No, I've got one written down, but I'll leave it for a briefing.
Thank you, thanks, councillors. 9.3, urgent business,
No, man.
9.4, any other business? No, thank you, councillor. That moves to 9.5, matters which may exclude the public. Councillors, we have a recommendation that pursuant to section 66(1) and 2A of the Local Government Act 2020, the meeting be closed to the public to consider the following reports that are considered to contain confidential information on the grounds provided in section 3(1) of the Local Government Act 2020 as indicated. 9.5.1 contract 115/2021-22 local roads reconstruction for the purpose of private commercial information, being information provided by a business, commercial or financial undertaking that, if released, would unreasonably expose the business, commercial or financial undertaking to disadvantage. Councillors, we have a recommendation that this meeting, at this point, we close the meeting to the public. Do I have someone that move that? Councillor Getley, do I have a seconder?
Happy to
Councillor
do that,
Milne.